It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked as we delve into the final hour of the show. And this is going to be a really interesting one for me from a number of angles because I am a father, but I also never knew my father. So this poses so many questions. We're no longer in an age where parenthood focuses mainly on motherhood, thankfully, and we are seeing that fathers do want to be more present in their children's lives. Come on. Research has also shown that through active fathers have an overall positive impact on their children's lives. So gone is the acceptance that of the deadbeat dad.
Deadbeat dads are gone. There's no such thing anymore, man. So ahead of Youth Day and Father's Day this week, today we're asking the question, did your father play a role or an important role in your upbringing, right? So we've got our resident clinical psychologist, Asha Dullabh, in the studio this morning, and she's going to be joined alongside the founder of the Son of a Son podcast. His name is Kgabo Legora, and he's on video call this morning to join us in this conversation. We're going to be discussing it all and taking some questions on our social media apps as well. So come weigh in on this conversation as we talk about the modern day dad.
The modern day dad. I love that. So, Kgabo, thank you so much for joining us as well. Asha, I'm going to start with you. Maybe a good jumping off point would be the difference between having a present father and having an absentee father. How does this kind of exhibit? I know it's complex, but if you could simplify it, how do these two kind of situations play out?
I think that it's such a very relevant question. So an absent father, I mean, you can have a present father, but he can be absent. So I think we're looking at the concept of an active father.
An
engaged father, someone that is accessible, and also someone that's responsible, that's there to be able to connect with the child from the space of the mind and the heart, connecting emotionally, being there. And obviously a child that has that in place flourishes on all aspects of life. They feel more balanced, they feel more safe psychologically, emotionally, a sense of belonging. They feel seen and heard, and that's very important for children.
I love that description of it. Now, before we actually get in on a conversation and weigh in on what Kgabo has to say, I just wanted to find out from you first, would you then say that there's a potential effect on the kid that does not have a father figure in their life? Are they not able to reach full potential? Can they not flourish because of that
Single
absence?
moms rock, man.
Yeah, I think that it's natural for us as human beings to flourish, right? So it's just that, you know, children sometimes can build up such great resilience in those circumstances. So it's really about what is the story that is being told in the context of the home, the ambience, the atmosphere, because like Graham said, single moms rock. And it's really about how is the child being raised? Is the parent able to look at themselves and address what, you know, their own stuff? Because when we have a child, in raising a child, we parent ourselves, we re-parent ourselves and re-represent ourselves to our children. So it becomes a dual learning process, both for the parent and the child. And it's about asking, how do you want your child to view you one day? Obviously, to be the very best version of yourself, so your child can be also.
Luckily, I'm still at that phase where my child reckons I'm a rock star. I'm an absolute rock star, and hopefully that'll last. Kgabo, I'm going to bring you involved in the conversation right now, and thanking you once again for the work that you do through your podcast, which sounds absolutely amazing. Obviously, there has always traditionally been a very strong, when it comes to matters of the child, there has been a really strong focus on motherhood. Are you finding now that there are more resources for the father and that more fathers are embracing these and becoming more connected?
Look, thanks for having me, guys. To be honest, in my own case, is that when I was said to be a dad, I couldn't find enough material or resources locally in South Africa that was made for fathers. There's a lot of stuff internationally, podcasts or YouTube channels and stuff like that, but I think that it's worth having locally produced content that you can relate to in your own context.
For sure.
But at the moment, there is a bit of a rise in content for fathers, for parenting. But I think this is why I created my podcast, because I was like, this is needed, and I could probably lean on a lot more men around me for their own wisdom. So that's what helped me the most.
And I think it's such an important topic that you have brought about, Kgabo, and we are going to dive deeper into it. We've got you on the line for the next 2 segments because I want to know so much more about why has this been missing for so long and why has it taken so long to get this narrative? So
Yeah, man, work, lady, children.
Yeah, so Kgabo, I'm so glad that you're going to be staying on the line with us. We've got Asha here as well, so we've got all the experts we need to delve into this conversation. So you guys at home, make sure you come through on the social media channels as well. Ask us some questions. We've got 2 specialists on the line for you, and you do not want to miss out the next 2 segments. So we'll see you soon, and stay with us, and we'll stick around.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, you beautiful souls. You're still locked in live right here and opening up with S3 on the Expresso show. And of course, ahead of Youth Day and Father's Day this week, we are asking the question, did your father play an important role in your upbringing? Well, we are back, of course, as this is round 2 of the ever-important conversation, and we're chatting with our clinical psychologist, Asha Dullabh, in the studio. And of course, joining us via conference, via the digital world, the Son of a Son podcast founder, Kgabo Legora, on video call to unpack this incredible topic. And of course, weigh in on your conversations and questions coming through on Facebook and our social media channels too. Yeah.
Really interesting. I don't know if you heard my intro, but I never had the opportunity of meeting my father, older than kind of 3 years old. So that's been the one side of this. But I'm also a dad, a very proud dad to 2 kids. So I'm constantly learning on the job every single day. But this is the South African narrative. And Kgabo, I'm going to put that to you. There's been this a long-time perception that father absenteeism is more rife when the father is no longer in relationship with the mother. Do you think this still holds true today? Is this the South African narrative, man?
You know what, bro? Sadly, it's true. But you know that phrase of like, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
That's what plays into this, is because I think that you're not able to visibly place where your responsibility is, right? So your child isn't there. But I think it's also worth mentioning that absenteeism isn't just physical. And I think Asha also mentioned this earlier, is that it's also an emotional thing, is that I can be physically present, but emotionally like detached. So you don't have my attention, but you have my presence. So I think either one is not healthy, but to be honest, to answer your question, it is still rife in that manner.
Buddy, I'm going to ask this, sorry to interject there, because we were just talking about this off air now. I can't imagine anything worse in my life than not being able to see my child every day and be connected to it. What is driving this? What is it? Are we carrying the sins of our own fathers across? Why do you think this cycle keeps repeating itself?
Look, to be honest, this parenting is scary. I'll be very honest, right? It's a very scary thing. And then so if you aren't, it's very different from mothers because they have to nurture that child the minute the child is here. But for the fathers, it's how do I say it? In layman's, it's whack that the father has the choice that I'm going to step away from this, right? The mother, on the other hand, it's a different thing altogether. So, look, it's a mix of fear, it's a mix of like scars, it's a mix of a lot of things. But I think to the crux of it is just a lot of fear. I'll be very honest.
It's like that, heal the boy and the man will appear eventually. Yeah. Asha, you look like you have something to say there. I don't want to interrupt because I can feel there's a point
so
to be
much
made.
Let it out.
I think that, you know what, to add to that, it's also about the trauma that one experiences growing up in, where there's conflict between a mom and a dad. There's trauma there. There's an experience of neglect or abandonment or rejection, and that trauma plays out in the whole home environment. So it's quite sad that when mom and dad's not together, it plays out in that traumatic narrative. Yeah. And again, you know, you mentioned fear, and I think I thought about this. If we could have children that don't have an experience of fear, shame, or guilt, what will families look like? But then again, we're sitting with parents that are with shame, fear, and guilt.
Hey man, nothing wrong with a little family baggage. I'm carrying those suitcases around with me wherever I go, and I'm going to hand them over to my child, and he can enjoy them as well. Kgabo, I'm going to ask you, because you've become this resource to other dads out there, How do you suggest fathers still actively involve themselves in the upbringing of their children, especially if they're not the primary caregiver or not in a relationship with the mother? Because that's where I think it becomes really sticky.
Yeah, it's a tough question. It's a tough question, but to be honest, I think you know this as a dad, is that you have to carve out the time, right?
Yeah.
You have to, if it's worth it, you'll make the time for it. And I think that it's worth mentioning that avail yourself, be intentional, and be consistent. Kids are creatures of habit, right? And if you miss that one soccer game that you said you were going to be at, it kind of like it stays in their memory. So I think, like, sacrifice your time, be consistent, and just keep showing up. Because I think, in as much as you might not be in the relationship with the mother would still appreciate you playing your role in that child's life.
I think especially in a day like the one we live in, where time is such a valuable commodity as well, giving that time and not just being there but being present, I think is so important, Asha.
Oh, yes.
Well, it's good for you as well, yeah.
Yeah, question, well, I guess we got another segment for this, because I'm like just bubbling with questions, and I'm just like, there's not enough time.
I'm doing a lot of processing here. I'm thinking about a lot of things, which is ideally what we want to be doing right now. We are talking about modern fatherhood and the idea that men can embrace their role, whether you're in relationship, whether you're out of it, whether you are the primary caregiver. You can be as actively involved in your child's upbringing. You should be as actively involved as the mother. We're going to continue this discussion with one more segment in a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yes, you beautiful souls, we're still locked in. Of course, we're still here for the final edition of this beautiful conversation. It's ahead of Youth Day and the Father's Day week that we are about to enter into. And today we're asking that question, of course, did your father play an important role in your upbringing? And of course, our resident clinical psychologist, Asha Dullabh, is in studio along with the Son of Sun podcast founder, Kgabo Legora, on video to unpack this topic and weigh in on that important conversation and questions about the modern day father. And we haven't been unpacking the thing. Thanks, G.
I've been loving it. We've been talking off air as much. We should have had a podcast for this one, actually. I think so. Just kind of stretch it out. Kgabo, thanks for sticking around. But Asha, I'm gonna put this to you because, to be completely honest, the great joys of my life have come from my children. Like, I can't, there is before and after. You just can't contextualize your life until you get that.
You make me smile when you say that, G,
but I give you so much bad press with dirty nappies and waking up 5 times a night. I'm terrified that I'd scared you away from being a period man, because you'll be an amazing dad. You'll be able to give your child so much, but you'll also be able to draw so much from that. It's not just for the child that this father being present wins. The dad, what does the dad get out of being a better dad?
Oh, wow. It's let's go back to that Ubuntu principle. I am because you are. Isn't that beautiful, for vice versa,
Completely.
the parent and the child? And it's an honor to be a dad. I mean, you grow and evolve as a human being when you are a parent, when you're laying the foundation for another human being, when you are seeing the very best version of yourself. It's like you have a child as a mirror to reflect back on you, to self-love yourself, to grow. It's just an enhancing, holistic experience of a journey of life.
It's like this continual check-in.
You get to watch cartoon movies every day.
You're kidding me. Come on, let me ask you while you're on the line, man. When it comes to talking about fathers just in general, I mean, you'd probably be able to conceptualize this really well for us, but what is that unique thing about the relationship between a kid and their father, man? What does that mean for you?
Look, I mean, for me, bro, I've got 4 kids, so it's like different for all of them.
4 full-time jobs.
Wait, but I might be a punching bag to one and something else to another. But you know what? Like, we all know the stereotype about father role being about provision. I must just provide the bacon and put bread on the table and that's it. But there's so much more to that. I know that for my own kids and what we value as a family is that I'm there to provide security. I'm there to provide affirmation and identity to help them along the way. Not that my wife isn't doing the same, but we both have different voices in our kids' lives. I think that's the way I can sum it up, because there's a lot that can be said about that.
Is it tougher being a dad too? What are your kids? Are they all boys, all girls, a mix of both?
I've got 1 boy and 3 girls. There's twins in the mix as well.
Oh my word! So who's the tougher to bring up, the boy, the girl, or the mix?
The girls, you know, I think everyone has their own personality. So I think I'm learning. I can see a lot of myself in my son, but I'm learning how to be a guy for girls because, you know, there's just so much that I learn from them as well.
Yeah, man, and their healthy relationships for the rest of their life are all on your shoulders right now. I absolutely love that.
Asha, I mean, let's just talk about the importance of relationship. I mean, when it comes to any relationship, when it comes to your father, I mean, we're hearing it from Kgabo as well, when he talks about that importance. But are there rules to this game? I mean, let's be honest, like, it doesn't seem like there's this one way in which you need to do things. What would be the best advice for someone that's trying to figure this out, that hasn't had a father figure? Is there a guide? Is there a website? You know, how does it work, you know?
Well, I think we are all trying to do something well that we know nothing about. We all are in the same game. We're all learning together. That's why there's enough books on all the bookshelves in all these bookstores, but we all are still in that journey of learning and discovering, and that's why these conversations is very important. It's really about, you know, taking perspective, and again, I will say, as a parent, look at yourself, because your child is modeling, imitating you. And remember that as a parent, you hold both the masculine and feminine archetypes within you. So a woman can do both a father and a mom's job, and vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
A dad can do the same. So remember that and nurture those qualities, and that you can only do once you look into yourself.
A nice reflection. When you're looking at your kid, Gio, you're going to see yourself now and be like, whenever he's doing something wrong, that's on me.
That's classic Graham right there. No, but it's so weird that you say that, because when Jack was born, I was up until the millisecond that I got to meet him, I was terrified that my clone was going to appear and that he was doomed to repeat all of my mistakes. And then they arrive and you realize whether you're there or not, they're going to have their own life. And it's just what you can add to that, what layers you can build on that. So that being said, I'm gonna correct what I said earlier. It's not gonna be a full suitcase of baggage that I'm gonna hand over to my kids. Maybe just a little rucksack, or like a hip bag, hopefully, of baggage. A little moon bag of baggage to pass on to your kids. Just having the conversation, I think, is the most important part of this. Dads, we know that it's tough out there. Kgabo, thank you so much for being that voice in this current situation. It's so cool to be connecting with very conscious dads like you. Good luck with the twins and the rest of your beautiful family. So good to have you.
Thank you, guys. Hopefully I can have you guys as guests on the podcast.
Dude, as you can hear, we are ready, man. There's so much more that needs to be said. Asha, thank you as always.
Pleasure.
Hey, this was a good, man. Absolutely beautiful chat. Dads, you rock as well.
Yeah.